any event, if you have a look at the last sentence,
Mm.
you're saying, I think the partnership is you, by which you presumably mean Mr Elliott, me, by which you mean Mr Maguire, Nick is Nicole Hatton, I take it,
Yes.
Julie and Julie McLaren, correct?
Yes.
Maggie Wang, correct?
Yes.
And Du Wei, the man in Beijing, correct?
Yes.
So is it accurate then, at least as you understood it in June of 2014, Gateway International was in the nature of a partnership in the sense of multiple people working together with a view to achieving a common goal of making some money?
Yes.
But again, you didn't declare your interest in this organisation, correct?
No.
And never declared any income received in relation to the organisation, is that right?
No.
To your knowledge, did Gateway International ever charge a fee to any person in exchange for an introduction to a New South Wales minister or other government official?
Not with my authority, they didn't.
You said that quite forthrightly.
Yes.
Are you saying that if you were asked for authority to deal with that matter, you would have refused it?
Absolutely.
Well, why? There's a number of things that you have so far admitted to doing that you've agreed was wrongful. Why would you draw the line at something like a fee of the kind that I've just identified?
Well, that would be going too far. That would be going too far to do that.
So not too far to monetise your office in the way that I've identified, but too far to monetise it in relation to an introduction to a government official.
A minister or someone like that, or the Premier.
Do you seriously draw that distinction?
Yes.
Do you agree that on a number of occasions you have introduced or set up meetings with individuals, with government officials, so as to assist those individuals?
Yes.
Ms Waterhouse, for example, you set up meetings for her in relation to issues that she had in relation to Badgerys Creek, correct? At least part of the reason that you did that is that you were hoping that there might be a profit for you in the event that her problems were fixed. Do you agree?
I had hoped.
And that's at least one of the reasons why you provided the kind of assistance that you provided to Ms Waterhouse, correct?
One of them, yes.
If you're prepared to do that, why do you draw the line at an introduction fee for a government official?
Well,
I
because...
don't understand how one class of conduct seems to fall one side of your line at the point in time, but another class of conduct, you forthrightly said, in effect, there's no way to ever do that.
I think I'm reflecting on some information that you shared with me previously, and it's influenced my answer to you.
So you're saying your response wasn't so much a moral reaction to say, well, that's too far, that's beyond the line. It's more that you've seen certain documents that I've shown you in the past, and you've thought about it further, and you think that you don't have a recollection of at least agreeing to a fee being charged for
Correct.
an introduction.
Correct.
So your response was more based on what you understand the factual position to be,
Yes.
rather than drawing a line and saying I was prepared to do some things, but I wasn't prepared to do other things. Is that right?
Yes.
And so let me show you a couple of documents in this area to get your comment on it. Can we go to volume 13, capital A, page 7? So do you agree that in about November of 2012, you arranged for a delegation from the Liaoning province to have a meeting with then Premier Barry O'Farrell in his boardroom in Parliament House, followed by a signing ceremony in Parliament House?
Yes.
That was associated with the then proposed Wooloowai Trade Centre
Yes.
to be built in and around Wagga Wagga, is that right?
Yes, and also the delegation from Liaoning visiting New South Wales, correct.
And part of that visit was a signing ceremony in relation to the proposed trade centre, is that right?
Yes.
You had a fairly good relationship with Premier O'Farrell, is that right?
Yes.
And if you just have a look at the email that's on the screen, is it consistent with your recollection that you made a personal request of Mr O'Farrell to entertain, or at least to receive, the Liaoning province in his boardroom.
Yes.
Tender the email that's on the screen. Email from Mr Maguire to Mr O'Farrell, 23rd of November 2012, 8:41 a.m.
Exhibit 348.
Is it right that the arrangement that you reached with Mr O'Farrell was that he would meet a smaller delegation of individuals in his boardroom, but there'd then be a separate signing ceremony that Mr O'Farrell would not be in attendance
Correct.
at? And just so we can see the two events, just so I can confirm that we're talking about the same thing, in the same volume, 13 capital A, if we can go start at page 30, this is Exhibit 166. Is it consistent with your recollection that this is the particular function, or reception at least, that occurred in Mr O'Farrell's
Yes.
boardroom as Premier?
Yes, it is.
And we'll just flick one further page so that we can see more than the former Premier's forehead. We then see him in that particular room.
Yes.
But the particular thing we're looking at is the event that you and I are talking about, is that
Yes.
right? And can we go then to page 23 of volume 13 capital A, which is Exhibit 137. Now, sorry, pardon me for a moment. Page 23 of volume 13 capital A. I misspoke, I apologise to the operator. So there's an email from you to Mr Elliott from a Gateway Darrell email address. Do you see that there?
Yes, I see that.
That's an email address that you use from time to time in relation to Gateway International Business, is that
Yes.
right? And you're sending it to Mr Elliott at his Gateway International email address. If we then just turn to the attachment, do you recognise that as the room set up for the
Yes.
signing ceremony that you and I spoke to before?
Correct.
Why are you sending that to Mr Elliott?
I think I was, if I reflect rightly, I was that excited that we'd finally gotten to that point to be able to have a signing ceremony, which is a part of the formalities of progressing any business or transaction, particularly in China. This is a traditional thing to do.
It's a common, in effect, cultural practice in business in China.
Very
that
common.
one step of the process, or perhaps more than one step of the process, to sign a document.
Yes, nothing progresses without an MOU and all the fanfare that goes with it.
And often the particular document is, as you say, something the nature of a memorandum of understanding, which is not a formal legal document necessarily, but is at least an indication of good faith by both sides that they're attempting to reach a particular goal.
Yes.
But it's certainly the case that, in your experience, it's not uncommon for an MOU to be signed, but for an ultimate deal not to be done.
Correct.
And the World Trade Centre provides an example of that. That was
Correct.
a proposal which didn't ultimately proceed.
Yes.
But what I'm trying to understand is why is Gateway Darrell sending this to, as it were, Gateway Phil? What was Gateway Phil's involvement in either the signing ceremony or the reception with Mr O'Farrell, or indeed anything else to do with the Liaoning delegation?
He'd been to Wuhai with me to have a look at the centre at some point, I recall.
Was that the extent of it, or did Gateway International have some role in organising one or other of these particular events?
I don't recall.
You don't recall at all?
I don't recall.
Did Nicole Hatton or Rebecca Cartwright have any involvement in
Yes.
those two functions?
Yes.
And were they doing that, at least as you saw it, with a, as it were, parliamentary hat on, or with a Gateway International hat on, or something in between?
I saw it as a parliamentary duty.
Were either of those individuals, or perhaps Mr Elliott, involved in sending any invoice from Gateway International in relation to anything that was done associated with those two functions?
I understand so, yes.
You understood so at the time, or you
No.
now understand based on some other material that you've been shown?
Correct.
But you were effectively a director of Gateway International, not a formal director, but at least effectively a director of Gateway International. Surely you had some